So in keeping with the whole theme of my machine, and that's get home, okay, or be of some use to other riders. One of the things that I decided to do is I purchased a winch. This is the Polaris 4,500 pound unit. I chose the one with a nylon cable because rider feedback on forums and experience, a lot of folks snap their metal ones. It seems like they don't treat them. They just leave them on the drum, and over time they just corrode or rust. They don't check them, or they just don't use them properly. They'll hook them up to another person's machine and just jerk the cable, and then of course, bam, they just snap wherever they're weak. The nylon cable, when it snaps, it does not threaten the life of any living creature nearby. When these metal ones go, they go crazy. They store all that energy and then they release it all and they go nuts. The nylon just kind of falls. It just falls limply to the ground and doesn't kill anyone. I'm sure there are exceptions with larger cables that maybe they can store more energy, but this is what I chose, and it works awesome. As long as the vehicle doesn't get pulled in, you can winch anyone out with that thing. You can park this sucker and just run it. And I got the one with the remote control, and I also use it to plow. When I do plow, I actually take that whole line of rope off, and I just put on like a tie down strap, part of that, and just coil it over a few times, and that's what runs my plow here. And I do have the power angle as well. The other thing I have, in the event that I may need to put the vehicle in reverse, which I've had to do, and keep a little bit of throttle on, which I think is okay, even though these have pretty weak factory reverse chains. It's not like I'm going to put it in reverse and stomp on it and use my winch. That's the wrong tool for the job. That's when you need a tow strap, turn your rig around, and use your low gear. So one thing that I did run into when I loaded all this extra crap on here, it was a lot harder in mud, deep mud, to put my tow strap on. For a while, I was actually using this thing. This is made by Smittybuilt, and it actually works really well. And now I can bring it for other riders, or I can still use it. And the tow strap being 12 or 16 feet long, the problem is that once I'm pulling, someone else they're driving over the cable or the cord or whatever. And I actually had it happen to the winch in the front where I was pulling someone out and they kept on the gas, and then it wrapped the first line up, and I showed Polaris it, and I didn't ask them to, and they actually warrantied it out. They warrantied it and gave me a new one. And it's my fault. Totally should not have received that. Thanks, Polaris. That was really cool of you to do that. I prefer to be accountable, and I should have paid you, but thanks for being a good company in that regard. So what I did, being that everything is really hard to hook up back here if it's down in the mud, I got this KFI Tiger Tail. This thing's pretty cool. You simply pull this guy out. It's got tension. It's a good amount of tension, and it kind of auto winds in as you're pulling. It's 12 feet long, and it's rated for a monstrous amount of weight. Like, I think it's 10,000 or 12,000 pounds or something nuts. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but it's well more than I'll ever have to think about needing. The one drawback, it has this little pin down here, and it sucks. It's got a lot of play. It jiggles like crazy going down the road. It really should have a bolt there, and it should just remain here. Now, if you do go that route, they make another plate that'll hook on here that'll give you that, like, an area to hook to and whatnot if you tow or whatever. One drawback to this system on an RZR is the proximity to the exhaust. And these exhausts, well, the factory one in particular, gets very hot. So before I ever used it, I'd read that people had issues with belts discoloring or melting. Not to a point where they'd have a critical failure in their tested load range, but it was enough to make me think about protecting the investment. So I took my slow-moving vehicle sign that I had out here to help the DEC leave me alone, and I bent it and I put it back here to add as a little bit of heat shielding for the exhaust. So between the two of those things, that usually has me pretty well covered. Now, if any of those fail, I do have a high lift jack. Now, this isn't its primary use, but I do have the ability to winch out with that as well. And I have the kit, and you can just hook up your chains and run your tow strap and run it to wherever you want on the machine, and you can walk yourself out that way. And a lot of people do that. Especially folks with, full-size vehicles, automobiles that weigh a ton, where winches are super expensive. That's actually a pretty darn good option. I don't use it that much because I've put money in these other systems that are more convenient. So I'm going to continue to use those, but I do like things with lots of utility on my machine, so I can have redundancies and whatnot. But yeah, so that's the winch and rope setup. That's how I get out of trouble if I need to, and that's how I help most people, especially that tiger tail. That helps a lot of folks. It's kind of expensive. Truth be told, you could have a clevis pin and use a regular 12-foot one that's probably $14 and have the same effect. It's just not as fast, and it's not quite as clean and neat. But hey, thanks again for watching, and I'll get you on the next one.